It started out as a joke. My friends were joking about it, even egging each other on to try it. We all laughed at the concept. Fucking a bowl of Cheerios? The mere idea sent shivers down my spine. The initial roughness and texture of the cold milk shrinking my erect penis. What joy could there be in that? I thought to myself. After a few weeks, nobody brought it up anymore. We moved on to different jokes and catchphrases as most groups do. They weren't as funny, but they definitely weren't as weird. We did the usual things, and Friday was drinking day. So, excuse me. By 2 a.m., all four of us were plastered. Jake let out a long sigh after pounding another shot, and Kevin was loudly snoring on the couch. After 20 minutes or so, it was just Steve and I alone finishing off our remaining beers. Dude, hold on, Steve smiled. What's up, man? I said in my drunken stupor. Steve sloshed his way over to the refrigerator and removed a gleaming white bowl from the fridge. I instantly knew what it was. What the shit fuck is that, Steve? I asked. Fucking Cheerios, man. You should fuck them. He seemed excited. Dude, it was just a joke. Don't tell me you... I was cut off. Nah, dude, I didn't fuck no Cheerios, but I'll bet you $50 you won't do it. I had my excuse. Fine, fucker, I'll do it. I was becoming erect already. How will I know you did it, huh? I froze up. My erection started to die. Is this some elaborate ploy for you to see my fucking dick, bro? I shouted, nearly waking our sleeping companions. Nah, dude, I just don't want any fucking cheating, man. I got $50 on this shit. Fine, I'll do it with my back to you and just stick my dick out through my fly. I was erect again. We both went silent. I carefully walked to the corner of the room and looked down upon the soggy mash of Cheerios awaiting my erect cock. They were honey nuts. Without waiting, I plunged my eager tool deep into the bowl. The milk washed up on my swollen testicles as they dipped into the swollen, soft contents of the bowl. I thrusted gently and realized how the Cheerios seemed to react to the shape of my member. The bowl was deeper than I expected. I heard cries of laughter coming from Steve, but I kept going. A wave of white anticipation struck me as my penis grew stiffer and my balls rumbled with an all-too-familiar feeling. I came. I came into that honey nut-flavored bowl of beaten Cheerios. My semen mixed flawlessly into the color of the bowl. My knees went weak. My breathing hastened. I fucking love Cheerios, I said with a smile. 3 days had passed since my first Cheerio man encounter. I had since then started experiencing with different things. I tried chocolate milk, but the whole experience just felt interracial. I tried adding sugar as well, but the cleanup became a hassle. Finally, I settled on bananas. They were the missing part of the equation. The Cheerio-inspired orgasms had doubled in strength, but my roommates were growing suspicious. I'd never ate Cheerios in the 2 years we'd lived together, and now I was going through a box a day, and nobody had ever seen me eat a bowl. I knew I had to be careful. I called Steve to joke about it a few days after it happened, and he didn't remember. I lost $50 but gained an experience that can only be equated with touching God. It was a fair trade. With Steve out of the way, I felt a little more relaxed. But not as relaxed as I could be, I whispered quietly to myself. A grin formed on my face as I slowly exited my room and made my way down the stairs. Only my roommate Lynn was home. She was gorgeous, but I had no time for girls. I had Cheerios. I carefully poured the bowl of Cheerios into the deepest bowl I could find. I delicately sliced one whole banana and placed it meticulously around the bowl. This is going to be a great night, I thought. I snuck outside to let the Cheerios moisten, my dick throbbing in anticipation, my mouth moist as if the Cheerios had some Pavlovian effect on me. I snuck inside quickly and plunged my cock straight into their cool, soft innards. I thrust my head back in pleasure as the banana slices gently caressed the side of my swollen prick. It had only been a few minutes, but showers of cum sprang from me, mixing into the milky broth. A quiet whisper escaped my lips. I began cleanup and headed to the sink to wash the dish when I heard it. "What are you doing?" My roommate Lynn stood there, barely awake. I was just having a bowl of Cheerios," I smiled. "I'm fucking hungry and you keep eating them. Now I'm craving them. Hand them over." I was erect again. She eagerly filled her mouth with my magic potion of Cheerios, bananas, and semen-infused milk. "God, this is good! No wonder you like it so much," she said as little streams of milk poured down her chin. "Heh, you're getting it all over yourself," I said. Oh, I'll get it. She licked her chops in a way that made me give my rod a new pre-cum finish. This is so much better than usual. What did you add? See, cinnamon, I sputtered. It doesn't taste like cinnamon, but it does taste really familiar. I always knew she was a slut. She looked as if she winked at me, but I played it off as if my eyes were playing tricks at me. She sloppily finished off the bowl and hopped on the counter. She put the bowl in the sink and placed her hands next to her. I always knew you were a Cheerio, fucker. This time she definitely winked at me. Life has been good since Lynn called me out about my new addiction. The truth was she loved the subtle semen taste mixed with milk, as her ex used to cum in her soy milk when he was mad at her. She caught him doing it, but had already developed a taste for it. So our relationship started. I would sneak out of my room late at night and plunge my rod deep into a bowl. The thought of her devouring it the next day made it harder than I thought possible, and when I came, it was, well, amazing. My life had taken a turn for the best, and I was loving every minute of it. About 2 weeks into our relationship, Lynn informed us all that her sister and her daughter would be staying with us for a couple of days because of a fire at their house. I guess money was tight and they really couldn't afford a hotel, so nobody objected, but inside I was in turmoil. Could I really get away from my dark cereal obsession for a couple of days? I'd have to try. I couldn't risk them finding out. They showed up that night, and I could barely hold back the urge to plunge my cock into a bowl of oatmeal Lynn's sister made for her daughter. It was an idea I hadn't considered, but noted that I must try. We spent the rest of the night watching boring sitcoms on TV until everyone decided to get to sleep. I laid on my bed for what seemed like hours. I couldn't hold back anymore. My erection had formed a circus tent on my bed, and I knew what I had to do. I snuck out of my room as I had so many times in the last few months and down the stairs. Lynn's niece was sleeping in her room, but Lynn's sister was asleep on the couch that was less than 10 feet away from the kitchen. If I was to do this, I'd have to be stealthy, but the noises I made while fucking Cheerios were ungodly, so I had another plan. I'd fuck them in the bathroom. I poured myself a bowl and snuck quietly into the bathroom near the stairs. I gave myself a few quick strokes to get me hard, then I plunged right in. The cool milk creeped up my urethra and gave me a sort of numb sensation. I almost came right then, but I held back. My erect cock hit the bottom of the bowl like a sledgehammer of meat. I groaned as the soft but gritty texture of the Cheerios rubbed against my sensitive penis. Pressure building in my balls as they slapped against the outside of the bowl, I stopped and smiled for a second before resuming my unholy act. And then it happened. I came, but the sensation of fucking the Cheerios so close to someone else took over, and I came again. Both ejaculations twice my normal size. I groaned loudly, but quickly caught myself. I grinned to myself as I played the scene of Lynn eating these tomorrow in front of her sister and niece in my head. She would barely be able to contain herself. A warm feeling washed over me. I walked to the door and went to open it, but as I approached, I noticed I was hard again. One more load wouldn't hurt, right? I didn't sleep for long. I woke up early and went downstairs. I didn't want a chance missing the show. I wanted to see Lynn get as worked up as she normally did when she swallowed her first bite of my cum and Cheerios concoction. She had gotten so worked up about a month ago that she had started fingering herself as she ate. I'm sure most guys would have gone crazy to the sight, but I was fixated on the soggy lumps of overworked Cheerios. As I walked downstairs, I heard the voice of Lynn and her sister. I hadn't really caught their names since I had been preoccupied with my secret, so I figured now was a good time. "Good morning, guys," I smiled at both of them as they sat on the couch and watched morning cartoons. "Good morning." They both didn't look up. "My name's Jack. I don't think I got your names, though." I put on a fake smile. "Well, my name's Karen, and this little terror is Stephanie." She smiled back at me as she pointed to her daughter, Lynn's niece. "Well, it's a pleasure to meet you guys. Mind if I join you for some TV? I love this show." I wedged in the seat next to Karen and zoned out, waiting for Lynn to come downstairs. About 20 minutes later, she did. She was dressed in a tiny miniskirt and a sports bra. She looked fantastic. It was the first time since Cheerios that I had actually been turned on by a woman. She mumbled a greeting and walked to the refrigerator. I became hard with anticipation and did my best to shift my position as to not alert Karen or Stephanie. Lynn's eyes widened as she looked into the fridge. I could see her knees weaken a bit, and she did let out a bit of a groan. Are you okay? Karen asked her. Yeah, I'm feeling a little sick, Lynn lied. Oh, well, if you need anything, let me know. I can't thank you enough for letting us stay here. You too, Jack. Just then, something terrible had happened. Stephanie, who couldn't have been more than 5 years old, piped up. Mommy, I'm hungry, she said. Lynn's facial expression became devious. Mine became horrified. We both knew what was about to happen. Lynn spoke before I could. Well, we're out of breakfast foods, really, but there is a bowl of Cheerios in the fridge if you're hungry, Stephanie. I love Cheerios! Stephanie sat right up and headed to the breakfast table. They're a little soggy. Is that okay? Lynn was clearly getting off on the idea. I hate to admit it, but I was too. Pre-cum was oozing off my cock like the first time Lynn ate my Cheerios. Lynn handed her a bowl with a spoon and sat down next to her with a glass of OJ. Karen asked if we could watch her while she took a shower, and Lynn agreed. Why don't you join us, Jack? Lynn smiled at me, and I eagerly got up and headed for the table. I sat down next to Lynn and noticed that she had already started playing with herself under the table. I smiled at her, and she winked at me. She took a sip of her orange juice and gently moved her hand out of her crotch and into my lap. She undid the button and tugged on my erect cock and gently started stroking it. Meanwhile, Stephanie was about to eat the Cheerios. She was about to take her first bite when my conscience kicked in. Hey, Stephanie, I said. Hi, Jack. She put the spoon down. What if I take you out for some pancakes instead? I smiled. I love pancakes even more than Cheerios, she smiled. But my mommy told me not to waste food. Stephanie looked sad. Well, maybe Lynn will eat them. I smiled at Lynn, but she wasn't having any of it. No, I'm not hungry. Jack, why don't you eat them? As she spoke, her grip tightened on my penis and the stroking stopped. Yeah, Jack, can you please eat them? Stephanie's pleading eyes caught me off guard, and I knew my fate. All right, I'll eat them. Then we'll go out for pancakes. I gulped. I had never considered it, but my cock was growing, and Lynn could tell. She started stroking again. Her pace quickened as the Cheerios got closer. I took my first bite and nearly came as it washed down my throat. The strong honey nut flavor was complemented by the subtle saltiness of my own semen. I was worried that I might have been disgusted, but all hesitation was gone now. I was thoroughly enjoying every bite. I could see now why Lynn loved it so much. Each salty bite was like a wave of passion flooding over me, and I could feel Lynn stroking me faster than before. The pressure was building, and I knew I had a limited time before I'd explode in a wave of euphoria. Normally, I wouldn't care, but Stephanie was still eagerly watching me devour my tainted cereal. Stephanie, why don't you go and get dressed? I'm almost done, and I know you're hungry. Okay. She hopped up from the chair and disappeared upstairs. She was in time, too, because as I heard the door slam, Lynn dropped to her knees and slid my already pulsing penis into her mouth and then deep into her throat. She gagged out something that I can only assume was as sexy as I pulled the bowl to my lips and began to suck the thick milk and jizz mixture, slurping as loudly as I possibly could. I finally finished coming, and Lynn sat back in her chair. You have a really small penis, Jack, she laughed. Hey, at least it's circumcised. This time I laughed. Yeah, I can't stand uncut guys, but seriously, it's kinda small. You're lucky your semen is like nectar. I can't get enough. She licked her lips to show me she wasn't kidding. That's good to hear. Thanks for that, by the way. You almost compared to Cheerios. I can't breathe. I'm not done yet. I'm not. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. A few months had. Shut up. No, serious now. Serious. Everybody, I'm putting on my try hard pants, okay? I'm putting on my serious face. Everybody serious. A few months had passed since Lynn's family and I had kept up on my Cheerio fucking adventures. No, Lynn's family left and I had kept up on my Cheerio fucking adventures. Lynn still enjoyed her morning bowl and I had now upped it to 4 loads. But like any relationship, things had become less exciting. I needed something to spice things up. To make things the way they used to be. I had let Lynn in on it, but she wasn't very much help. Why don't you just fuck me? I'm pretty hot and I can take a dick well. It was the only thing she really said, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. It was too different and frankly kind of grossed me out. But then I had an epiphany. Maybe it was time for a fantasy I had always had. My dick was already 4 inches deep in a bowl of Cheerios as I came to the concept. It was time to try cornflakes. I went down to the local grocer and could barely contain my anticipation as I approached the cereal aisle. Euphoria hit me like a sack of bricks as I walked down the glorious aisle. I had been here many times, but the concept of a new cereal made this experience new. It was like I had broken up with a girlfriend and could simply pick a new one for the price of $3.99 or 2 for $5 with a club card. My erection was obvious as I sidestepped an older lady to get to the cornflakes. I'm sure she saw it, but I didn't care. A white box with a giant rooster on it beckoned me. It was almost as if it was meant to be. I started to leave the aisle, but something didn't feel right. I immediately figured out what it was. We were out of Cheerios at home. I picked up a few boxes of Cheerios with a grin and headed to the checkout. When I got home, I was greeted by 6 strangers, all of them trashed and all of them obnoxious. I had counted on a nice quiet evening with a bowl of cornflakes and maybe a bit of wine, but I'd have to wait. My other roommate, Paul, was throwing a party. I couldn't really complain because he's extremely quiet and never did anything to step on anyone's toes. It didn't matter. I'd just fulfill my mission in my room. Maybe Lynn would watch. I walked to the kitchen and grabbed 2 bowls and a gallon of milk and hobbled up to my room. I had knocked on Lynn's door, but she didn't answer. It looked as if tonight was just going to be me and my cereal. I stared at the bowl longingly as I poured the cornflakes out of their box. My cock started pulsating as the orange-tinged flakes toppled out into the bowl. Milk soon joined them, and my throbbing penis drew closer, almost with a mind of its own. A few strokes to get hard, and I was in. The texture, shape, color, the slightly roughened, non-circular edges caressed my meat as I plunged my dick further in. I had been taking penis enlargement pills on behalf of Lynn, who desperately wanted me all the way down her throat. My dick wasn't fitting the full way in, so I figured they must be working. And how? Suddenly, the door burst in. I wheeled around to see Lynn standing there, her eyes hungrily fixated on the bowl, wedged onto my dick. "Is it my turn yet?" she inquired. She flickered her brown hair and winked at me, and with a final thrust my load burst all over the cornflakes. Yes, just in time, too. She stalked over towards me and grabbed the bowl off my crotch. Milk and stray flakes fell from my groin as she began devouring the freshly made bowl. Cornflakes were my new god. The shape and form created an ecstasy from which I could not hold back. Lynn looked up from her bowl and questioned me for what seemed like the 1,000th time. "Please, Jack, can you fuck me while I eat this?" My mind started whirring. I had formed a plan. A devious plan. I would give Lynn what she wanted, while escaping of my own dilemma of not wanting to fuck her. I would pour cornflakes and milk inside her. It would be orgasmic. She seemed to read my thoughts and nodded. I grabbed the packet of cornflakes and she fell onto the bed and spread her beautiful, long brown legs. I opened her wide and started jamming in fistfuls of cornflakes with my hands. I added milk and she yelped softly. I was throbbing with anticipation already. I directed my pulsating cock into her moist pussy, her juices flowing and mixing with the milk and flakes. I jammed it inside her, forcing the cereal further and further inside her, fucking her with all the intensity I could manage, despite the utter ecstasy I was in. Harder and harder I pushed, her face staring up at me, milk mixed with my semen dribbling down her chin, wetting her tiny tank top. It was becoming too much. I thrust further and further inside her, the milk of cornflakes and pussy juices creating an amalgam of awesome that I just could not resist. "Fuck!" I screamed as I shot what I would call one of the biggest loads I have ever felt through her system. She vibrated and clenched the bowl, dropping it to the floor, where it smashed, sending the contents scattering across the room. I had made Lynn orgasm. She immediately jumped up after she recovered the pleasure of the climax coursing through her body, and leapt off the bed. She then began licking the milk and flakes off the carpet, making distinct noises while she was doing it. I saw her thick, firm ass cheeks from behind, her pussy dripping with milk and juice, with the occasional flake falling out. "I came inside you, Lynn," I said solemnly. "I know, I'm on the pill, it's okay," she said quickly, then resumed licking the flakes from the floor, her ass moving up and down slowly as she lapped up my body's fruits. After that night, things seemed different. I couldn't find the same pleasure as I had fucking the cornflakes inside Lynn's pussy. I tried everything. I filled up a fleshlight with cornflakes, Cheerios, bananas, and milk, but I just couldn't manage it. And Lynn didn't seem to be dropping any hints that she wanted more. And besides, she was going away for a month to see Stephanie in her mother's new home, and stay there for a while to break it in. After many unsuccessful attempts to reach the climax I had achieved before, I decided that it was time for a more radical option. Something I had never yet tried, but considered. I wasn't going to fuck a bull or a fleshlight. I was going to fuck the opening of a milk bottle filled with Cheerios, bananas, cornflakes, and the rim lubed up to maximum. I went to the store and purchased the ingredients. The checkout worker had come to learn my name and special, and as soon as I started walking towards him, he already had the register open with my standard order programmed in. "One more item today, Jerry," I said to him, holding up the bottle of lubricant. He merely raised his bushy eyebrows and smiled, ushering me through. "No need to pay for that one. With the amount of cereal you eat, it must be a pretty inexperienced woman to have a thing for you," he said jokingly. "Hey, buddy, when you graduate from scanning my products to benefiting society, I'll take your opinion," I said, shoving the extra cash for the lube into his hand and walking out. My hands were sweating all over the wheel of my car as I made the journey to my apartment. I raced in the door with my bags and set them on the table, and looked to see Steve sitting there, watching TV. "What are you doing here today, bro?" I asked. I got the sack. By the way, did Lynn tell you before I left? There's some renovators coming in about 20 minutes or so to fix up the bathroom and buffer out some of those cracks in my walls. They're getting pretty damn big, man." "Oh, cool," I responded. "What the fuck? Where did this news come from? Where would I bust this load now? My dick had been begging for it since I arrived at the store and found the milk." "How long will they take?" I inquired, covering my annoyance with nonchalance. A few days or so. We're gonna have to sleep and live down here for a while. Is that cool?" Yeah, no worries." "Where do I shit?" I said. "Whoa, well, there's a public toilet not far away, like a 1 or 2 minute walk. I was hoping you wouldn't mind if we could use that," Steve said, going a little red in the face. This was really starting to get to me. However, I retained my composure. "Well, dude, I don't know. Seems a bit of a stretch, but I guess we need to stop this place going to shit, so I'll have to cope." I was infuriated. He was sitting there, smug little grin on his face. He'd never done anything like this before, but I already knew what he was having breakfast for tomorrow morning. A quadruple shot bowl of Cheerios. It was just a shame Lynn couldn't be there to enjoy it. I grabbed my shopping bag off the table and walked back out the door. Steve looked up at me for a second inquisitively, then evidently dismissed the thought. I strolled on down to the public bathrooms in the park just near our place and entered stealthily. I unpacked my things onto the closed seat of the toilet. Tipping a fair portion of the milk into the toilet bowl, I grabbed the Cheerios and the cornflakes and made haste emptying them into the partially drained bottle. I broke up the banana with my hands and added that too. I felt like I was on some rabid, druggy cooking show. My cock rose up in my pants as I took the tube of lubricant and applied it to the rim of the bottle, my hands quivering with excitement. Slowly, I bent the completed orgasm tube towards my cock. a little of the contents spilling down my legs. One thrust, two thrusts, and it was in. And was it ever in? Jamming my dick back and forth out of this bottle was possibly equal to fucking Lynn's cereal vagina. Suddenly, from outside, I heard the cruel laughter of young boys. Evidently just off of some bullying endeavor, they strutted into the bathroom and started kicking my door. I screamed at them to fuck off, but they just laughed and kept doing it. Then Jack had a plan. Jack had a devious, evil plan. I blocked out the noises of the kids smashing my door in, and kept furiously working the bottle back and forth along my cock. I started making noises, and there were a few distinct, "What the fuck is he doing?" calls from outside, but nothing could stop me. This was everything I had been waiting for the entire day. I pushed harder and harder, my dick pulsating with carnal desire for my whole-grain lover, when I felt my balls rumble. It was time. I ripped the bottle off my dick, and jerking myself furiously, I charged out of the cubicle, cock dripping with milk and pre-cum, and I fired the greatest load of sperm I think I have ever witnessed from any human. The cum arced, and I watched, almost in slow motion, as if covered the baby face of some 12-year-old asshole. His backwards trucker cap soaked in, his face a mask of horror. They all screamed like little bitches and fled before the advancing wrath of my throbbing member. Instantly, I was hard again. I closed my sacred cubicle and started pumping the bottle back and forth. Steve was going to enjoy his breakfast tomorrow, I thought to myself. Over about an hour, I came 4 separate times into that bottle. My balls were black and blue, and I stumbled back to our place. Excuse me. Falling through the door, Steve was nowhere to be found. Hopefully, he was out looking for work. I dropped onto the couch and set my watch alarm to wake me at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning to organize Steve's feast. It was about 8:30 p.m. when I fell asleep. The next morning, I awoke to the beeping of my watch. Steve was on the floor on some sort of mat that I didn't even know we owned. It looked pretty grungy, but however, it would have nothing going on what he was about to eat. I got up groggily, sleep inertia clouding my senses, and stumbled to the fridge. Opening it, my jaw dropped. The bottle was gone. I looked around. I couldn't see it anywhere. Had Steve found it? Had he already eaten it? Anxiety collected in the pit of my stomach. I ran into Lynn's room to see if I could find it. To find her, head tilted back, drinking the miasma of soggy cereal and 4 shots of my nut butter. "Hey, Jack. Work called me and I needed to be back, so I had to come." "Speaking of cum, this was pretty strong stuff. You been eating much raw salt lately?" she said, winking, and tossed the bottle onto the corner and walked out of the room. I realized then that I wanted her again. I wasn't sure if she didn't want to take my dick anymore or if she was playing hard to get, but I wanted her lips wrapped around my shaft more than a good cold bowl of cereal. But the fact still remained. Steve had escaped my wrath. So I formed a plan. A plan to win access to the warm bowl of Lynn's vagina and destroy the mind of Steve for subjecting me to the torture of those bastard children. I thought I'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Speaking to Steve, he said he was out last night at the bar, busy with his dealings in the ladies, as he likes to say. I decided to lie a little. I said that Lynn would be betting in a hotel, and she told me to tell him this if he had woken up and she had left for work. He bought it like the docile fellow he is. I moved the conversation onto her room, and said that she had proposed that either of us could sleep in her bed. I decided to martyr myself for him, and allowed him to use it while she was away. He had a huge thing for her, and he'd probably skeet from just being in her room. I convinced him to have another night out at the pub, and that perhaps his luck would wax strong tonight with concern to the ladies. By no means was Steve an unattractive man, and I hoped he'd find some early consolation before having his mind obliterated. Part A of the plan was complete. Part B would be initiated when Lynn arrived home from work. But first, a trip to the store for supplies. The delivery must be perfect if I was to pull this off with maximum efficiency. Thus, Away I went, and arrived home about an hour before Lynn was due home. Perfection. Steve had left the house too. Even better. Part B rolled into action. I had purchased a little something extra today from the chemist. And by purchased, I mean I asked my friend at the counter for it and he handed it over free of charge on the condition that I explained the whole story to him. By the way, Andrew, if you're out there, you're part of the reason I'm writing this. I know you're a lurker. Anyways, I had some Viagra. I didn't know what would happen if I took this, but I knew that if I was going to get as much semen into the bowl as I needed, then I was going to need stimulation worthy of Zeus himself. When I arrived home, I poured myself a bowl and quickly shot off my first 2 loads. This wasn't even a challenge anymore. As my cock started to hurt, I took the Viagra. Instantly, I was revitalized and managed a full 3 more loads sprayed into the bowl. But my last tablet I was saving for when Lynn got home. I quickly cleaned everything and got up to my room, where I lay in wait. My cock was in terrible pain, but I just needed 1 more load. For Lynn. I heard the front door click open. It was about 11 p.m. She was 3 hours late, which was odd. She walked inside, and I heard the fridge open and a grunt of dismay. She then called my name. Jack, you home? I decided not to respond. I was standing in her room, totally naked, packet of cornflakes on the floor, milk in one hand, and the quintuple shot Cheerio bowls in hand. I quickly trod on the send button on my phone, which lay beneath my feet. The message would arrive on Steve's phone at any second. Get back here now, preferably with the girl you're talking to. I have a nice surprise for the 2 of you. Steve was the kind of man that couldn't resist a good surprise, especially one that involved him and another woman. He'd be home soon. The handle on the door to the room slowly began to turn. I had taken exorbitant amounts of Viagra, and my cock felt as if it was going to explode. The door creaked open, and there she was, in her work clothes. A tight black skirt, hair done up, and a suit jacket over her shoulders. Her blouse was bursting. It was just too small for her tits. I assumed she had been going for a raise today. She looked at me with mouth wide open. Her purse fell onto the floor. Cheerios? 5 shots in this one, I calmly stated. She rusted me, facade of disinterest gone from her eyes. She grabbed the bowl from my hand and literally plunged her face into its depths. I could hear soft, sounds from her diaphragm. My dick was so hard it was unbelievable. She noticed, grabbed it, and began to rub it. The feeling was amazing. I managed to murmur, Cereal? In your pussy? She managed to nod amidst the devouring of my honey nut butter Cheerios. She sat down on her bed and started eating. As I grabbed the milk, cereal, and banana and began to create my concoction, I poured it into her vagina and stuck my cock in as soon as I could. I was fucking her hard and she munched on the Cheerios, my cries of ecstasy mixed with her grunts and snorts of pleasure. She was in heaven, and so was I. I kept plunging my cock in and out until I realized that we needed to add something. So I turned her over and spread her ass cheeks, shoving fistfuls of cornflakes and Cheerios into her tight anus. In went the milk, followed closely by my banana. I had found the meaning of life. I was drilling her in the ass. An ass filled with delicious cereal and my meat, together creating a miasma of pleasure that made me see Jesus himself. When suddenly the door ripped open and we saw Steve standing there, complete with some unattractive whore he had found at the bar. His mouth was wider than Lynn's anus, but that wasn't stopping us. There was shit and milk everywhere. My roommate standing at the door to the room, and me fucking his lifelong love in the ass while she ate a bowl of semen-infused Cheerios. My relationship with Cheerios is now serious. We haven't heard from Steve in a long time. And the volume of the profanities he was screeching? Well, I'll take that to the grave. The end.